Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com. Welcome to Mastering On1 Photo RAW 2018. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Details panel that's in the Develop module of On1 Photo RAW 2018. Now, whenever you sharpen or eliminate noise in an image, I strongly suggest that you zoom in to 1:1 or 100%. And to do that, simply click on the image and you'll zoom in. And you can see on this image, it's an extreme example. It was shot at ISO 6400, so there's a considerable bit of noise. But still, there's a considerable bit of detail in the image as well. So this image works well to demonstrate sharpening and noise reduction. And as you look at the Details panel, you'll see along the top there's some presets. The first preset is Default. All that is really all the sliders at 0. So it's as though you reset the whole panel. So if you have these sliders and they're pushed all over the place and you just want to return them to their default 0 position, simply click that preset and it zeroes out everything. You could accomplish the same thing by clicking this backward circular arrow right there and you'll reset everything back to 0. Now to the right of that default button is a button labeled Low. And when we click on that, it just adds some sharpening and some noise reduction. It puts sharpening at 50, luminance, noise reduction at 15, detail 0, color noise reduction 5. It also had threshold at 1 up there for sharpening. So it just added some settings. It will do that to every single image. It won't be a specific low setting for your specific image, which will be different for every image. It's the same exact settings for any given image. So you may be able to get away with that by clicking that low. It may work great for your specific image. If it doesn't, you may try clicking high. It adds more sharpening, more luminance noise reduction, more color noise reduction. Again, it's not specific to an image. It's just general settings it's going to throw on the image, and hopefully it works out. Now to the right of that is a drop down, and you'll notice that there's 2 more presets there. One is for print, and you can see it added a ton of sharpening, brought down the luminance noise reduction, added a ton of color noise reduction, and some detail color noise reduction. Now, again, that's just a real general setting for people that may be printing that image. Those of you that do a lot of printing know that specifically sharpening is going to be specific to the type of paper and ink used. So I really don't recommend you use the print preset. You may be disappointed in the results. It won't really give you the best print, in my opinion. You're better off learning what these sliders do and sharpening the image specific for the scene and for the image that you're using, and then for the paper you're using, so that you come out with the best print possible. The other preset is called Screen, and again, that's just some real general settings that give you sharpening and noise reduction for an image that's only going to be shared online. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, for people to view on a computer monitor or on a phone. So it's really not a specific setting, again, for your image. Now you could probably feel from the tone of my voice, I'm not really high on these presets. They really will do you a disservice because every image is different, every scene is different. Some will require a lot of sharpening and a little noise reduction. Others may require a lot more noise reduction, so everything's a little different. So we really have to understand and learn what these sliders do. So to do that, we're going to reset everything to 0 by clicking on the default button. And one thing I should add real quick, a couple people did email me, and I did notice one comment on YouTube that under this More drop-down, people did not have print and screen on their version of On1 Photo RAW 2018. I am not using a raw copy, so if you don't have those presets, even though I recommend you don't use them, if you don't have them though, you may not be using the latest version of On1 Photo RAW 2018. So go up to the Help button up here at the top, Help menu, and go down to Check for Updates. And it should come up and tell you that you need an update. In my case, I'm using the latest version of On1 Photo RAW. For my Mac, it's 12.1.0.4938. Windows is probably going to be a different number, but that's the latest version as of the making of this video for Mac. So make sure you're using the latest version. If you aren't, it will prompt you to update it. So we want to learn what these sliders do. Now, what I strongly recommend you do is do noise reduction first. It's more difficult to get rid of noise if you sharpened it first. Even though this panel has sharpening at the top and noise reduction at the bottom, I strongly recommend you remove noise first. So that's what we're going to do. Typically, I will remove noise early in my workflow. I won't sharpen early in my workflow. Then I'll do whatever else I'm going to do to the image, and then I sharpen last. That's the way I do it. So I would pop into this details panel twice. I would do it early in the workflow to eliminate noise, and then I would come back to it later after I did anything else I did to the image, and then sharpen it at the end. It's really up to you how you do it. There's no real set way, but I do strongly recommend that you do luminance noise reduction at least first. So what we're going to do is come in here and do that first. We're zoomed in, and it's really the luminance noise reduction slider is just section is just two sliders. It has luminance and detail. And if you move the luminance slider to the right, you're really just going to be smoothing out any of that digital noise you have in the image. And you can see that it did that quite readily. Even at like 80, it's considerably smoother. There is before and there's after. Now, the dance you partake in when you do this is when you're moving luminance noise reduction to the right, you're smoothing the image out. So by definition, you're also going to be smoothing out some of the detail. So really, it's kind of a fine line. You want to eliminate noise, but you don't want to obliterate detail. So you got to find that happy medium. So you kind of jump around a little bit and work on these sliders to try to get the image to look the best it possibly can. Now, in the case of this specific image, there's not a ton of detail. I like the detail I have in her face, but I don't really care about the background or anything like that. So I want to look at the image at a spot where I could see a lot of noise, but see a lot of detail at the same time. And I want to come in here and I want to move this luminance slider that it got rid of the noise nicely, but it didn't obliterate the detail. And I think somewhere around 40 for this specific image will work well. Now below that is the detail slider. And for those of you that work with like Topaz, Lightroom, some other programs, the detail slider in this luminance part of the noise reduction works backwards from what those programs' detail slider does. With those programs, you would eliminate noise by moving the slider to the right, the luminance slider in this case to the right. And then if you smoothed out the detail a little bit too much, you would move the detail slider to the right to try to bring that detail back. With On1 Photo RAW 2018, the detail is at its maximum when it's at 0. So if I move it to the right, I'm actually going to smooth out the image even more. So if you look over here like to the gorilla's face and fur over here, and as I move detail to the right, you'll see that it smoothed it and blurred it out even more. So it works, again, backwards to Lightroom, Topaz, some of those other programs. So what I recommend you do is move the luminance slider to the right to eliminate noise and try to leave the detail on 0. That will help preserve what detail is there while still allowing you to remove the luminance noise. So try to leave that at 0. If you have a really super noisy image and you find you moved luminance all the way to the right, it still has a lot of noise and you really don't have a lot of detail to worry about, then come in and move that detail slider to the right. And it's going to smooth the image out even more. You can see how it blurred out everything in there. I'll move that to the left. So come in, adjust luminance, try not to move detail. A tip: hold in your Alt or Option key. Alt if you have a PC, Option if you have a Mac. And when you click on either the luminance or detail sliders, the image will turn black and white. And that may help you better eliminate the noise looking at a black and white image as opposed to the color image. So give that a try and see if that works out for you. Hold that Alt or Option key in. It also will make the black and white, or turn the image black and white when you adjust the detail slider as well. Now the next two sliders below that are color and detail. Now this image doesn't really have any color noise in it. Color noise are those individual grains of noise that you'll have in your image will actually have color to them: red, green, and or blue. Sometimes you have all three, sometimes you just have one. Now to demonstrate those two sliders, I am going to jump out of this image and I am going to go to this image, because this image is really a very old image and it was done on an older camera and it has a lot of color noise. Now I'm going to zoom way in. Now you can see here there's blue dots. You can see that there's a little bit of green dots too. I don't see too many red dots, but that is color noise. And again, you would move this color slider to the right. And when you do that, it doesn't smooth out the dots like the luminance slider does, smooth out the grain. It really just takes the color out of those dots. So as I move this to the right and move it all the way to the right, you could see that it really kind of eliminated the color. The detail slider just does it some more. So if I move that all to the way to the right, you can see we almost have a black and white image. Now I'm going to go before and after. You can see how it took that blue and some other color right out, because I have those at both, each at 100. Now what you can do, I'm going to put those both back to 0, is hold that Alt or Option key in again when you adjust both of these sliders. When I click on the color slider while having the Alt or Option key in, you could see the screen turn gray. And you could see that there's some lighter pixels and some darker pixels. What you want to do is move that to the right to try to make that as homogeneous as possible. And you'll find that there's going to be a point where it just won't get any more homogeneous than it is. So what you will do is hold that Alt or Option key in. Again, it's Alt if you have a PC, Option if you have a Mac. Click on the color slider, move it to the right. You'll see that it will start even out the tones of gray, and then it just kind of stops. That's where you stop adjusting the color slider. Then go down to the detail slider. Again, hold that Alt or Option key in, move that to the right, and it will smooth everything out a little more. And then it will seem to stop. That is the optimal adjustment for those two sliders. You could see it really eliminated the color. There's before and there's after. Before, there's after. Because again, if you move those sliders too far, you'll actually create a black and white image, or a near black and white image. You'll be eliminating too much of the color from too many of the pixels. So that is the correct adjustments for the color and detail slider. Just hold that Alt or Option key in and make it as homogeneous gray as possible. Now I'm going to jump back to our other image. I'm sorry for jumping around like this. But this image, I think, is a better image to process than that older, really noise-ridden image. Now we zoomed in. We did some luminance noise reduction. Now what I actually recommend you do is, if you have an image that has both color and luminance noise reduction, start from the bottom up. Do the color noise reduction first. That will eliminate the color from the noise. Then do the luminance noise reduction next, and that will smooth out the noise. And so I recommend you work in that order, bottom up. Now, before I miss it, there's a little button right here, Remove Hot Pixels. If you have an older camera, all cameras, all digital cameras have a sensor with pixels, and often the pixels will go bad. Newer cameras have software in it that will compensate for any burnt out pixels. But older cameras didn't, and you would get, usually it'd be a bright green, red, or blue dot, because that pixel was dead, and we called it a hot pixel. So what you could do then is just click this button, turn it on. By default, I believe it is on, and it will look for any hot pixels and eliminate it. Again, newer cameras have software that compensate for hot pixels, so you wouldn't really have to worry about it. So next, we jump up to sharpening and noise reduction. And again, there's really only two sliders. We move this amount slider to the right, and you're going to increase the sharpening. Now, really all you need to guard against is that you're not just sharpening so much that it looks fake or it looks more HDR-like, or what I like to call it crispy. And you often will see that in the hair of your model or the fur of a gorilla, something like that. If you move it too high, it starts looking just like fake. It doesn't look good. And if you move it too high, you'll start enhancing any noise that is left in the shot. So it's really by feel. Now you can hold again that Alt or Option key in and move this, and it will give you a black and white image. And that might help you adjust sharpening when you do that. For me, it doesn't help, but for you, it might. So I will move this up, and I look for detail, and I'm really looking almost at the pores of her skin to get some detail there. And that detail was there already, and I kind of smoothed it over by moving the Luminance slider to the right. So I'm just going to move this to the right till I start bringing that detail in. If you have a model and her or his eyes are very discernible and sharp in the image, I would look at the model's iris, and that's what I would turn sharpening up to get that nice and sharp. But then I'm careful to not reintroduce any noise. So in this image, it doesn't need a ton of sharpening because there really isn't great detail in this shot. But it did a nice job of returning some of that detail to her face. Now, threshold is really how much of the fine detail do you want the amount slider to adjust. The best way to demonstrate it, again, is a little feature of On1 is to hold the Alt or Option key in. The Alt if you have PC, Option if you have a Mac. And when you click down and you begin to move this threshold slider, you see when it's on the far left, all that part that is white is being sharpened. As you move it to the right, the part that is increasing is the parts that are black. That is parts that are not being sharpened. So you're really removing the sharpening from this larger swaths of area. This works particularly well when you're working on a landscape image with expansive skies and you really don't want to sharpen the sky. You would use this threshold slider, hold that Alt or Option key in, click down, begin to move it, and just wherever the white is where the sharpening is being applied. So her fur and her face, like right in here. That's where I want it applied. Then you could probably come in and increase your amount a little more of sharpening because it's not affecting over here. It's just affecting, again, wherever that white is. That's what's being sharpened. So we could come in here and tweak that up even higher. So that helps sharpen the detail, but not sharpen any noise. So that, I think, looks pretty good. Then what I would normally do is zoom out, and then I would do a before and after by clicking this whole panel off and on by clicking right on that little button right there. There's before, and there's after. Now, past experience, this doesn't translate well to a video, so I doubt you could see it. But it did a pretty good job. I could probably come in here and bring in a little more luminance noise reduction. There's before, and there's after. Before, after. I like to zoom out though and look at it. before, after. So it did a nice job of smoothing out the noise that was there, but still sharpened it to where I want it sharpened and not sharpening that background at all. I want that to be as blurry as possible. So it looks pretty good by doing these adjustments. So I think that shows that those presets really won't do your image justice. You really have to do this specific to the scene you shot. So I hope that helps you better sharpen and reduce noise in your image. Thank you, everyone that watches my videos. I truly do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.